Hey YouTube, update on the Model Y delivery for Saturday. Seems like everything's set. I've talked to Tesla a few different times, the people at the local store, and looks like everything in my account is set up. I've made final payment. Looks like the loan has been countersigned and sent over. So everything's looking good for noon on Saturday tomorrow for pickup. I'm super excited to get that Model Y. I haven't checked with anyone whether or not I'm gonna have the full self-driving beta. Um, my guess is that I won't, right? I think they are gauging who gets the full self-driving beta by how safe of a driver you are. And obviously they have no data on me as a driver. So I do have half the mind to spend quite a bit of time driving this week. And if in advance of Christmas, they don't come out and just release full self-drive beta for the wider population of drivers, I'll probably try to write to someone and see if I can't finagle a way to get the download for the full self-driving beta. In other Tesla news, obviously today was the S&P inclusion date, and it was a wild ride. You know, I was working my normal day job best as I could. I did have to spend a little bit of time over lunch on the phone with Fidelity dealing with some things that I hadn't encountered before. And then once I was wrapping up work, I was able to go back and watch a little bit of Rob Maurer, like Tesla Daily Podcast, his stream, just going over like how closing cross at the end of the day when the S&P is closing and all the different dark pools are coming together and you're matching up buyers and sellers, and there's just like this huge volume of all these tracking funds that have to buy Tesla stock to finally be included in the S&P 500. They're going to have to rebalance their funds and their positions on all these different companies now that they have Tesla purchased. I'm not sure if the other trades for like selling out of positions of companies to make up for the amount of stock that now has to reside in Tesla, if that happened at the closing cross on Friday, or if that rebalance happens over the weekend and then they adjust their positions with other stocks that aren't Tesla, which is the inclusion stock, if those other securities get rebalanced on Monday. But it'll be interesting to see. I do have like a little bit of a fear that it could cause what would look like a bit of a recession. You know, we've got a lot of positive news coming out about vaccines and things like that. Obviously, unemployment reports aren't that great, but there's just like a lot of good around the corner, right? At the end of the workday, I was able to go back and review some of that. You know, I kept an eye on just what the closing price was, and it seemed like for about 15 minutes, no one really knew what the closing price of Tesla was. It seems like it finished at $695, which is up about, I think, 5.6%. I didn't look that closely, honestly, because any sort of action that I wanted to do, you know, I did sell off a small position to pay for a portion of my vehicle and then taking out a small loan as well. So it was just like a very exciting day. I wasn't planning on selling any stock. I did have half a mind to buy a few shares on margin and then sell them at the close, because I just had this gut feeling like I know the price is going to go up. Even when it got up to like 682 today, I just had a feeling. So I didn't do that, and I'm totally fine with it. It's not like I'm dealing in thousands and thousands of volumes of shares where I'd be making some huge move and be making a ton of money or anything like that. And I don't have the guts for doing options trades. I'm not looking to gamble as much. I mean, I know what I just said is essentially a gamble, but I'm not looking to just full on throw money away if it doesn't go the way I think it will. So short terms, options, contracts, like that's just not, I'm not interested in doing that. But it's going to be a wild ride. If I give my analysis on what's going to happen, right, there might be a little bit of a dip. I do think though, by and large, the S&P will be a stabilizing force for Tesla stock. Obviously, I'm not an investment broker. I'm not giving anyone investment advice, but this is just my own opinion. I do see the S&P inclusion being like this big bulk of money that it's like assigned and ascribed to Tesla, and that's just how it will be, and it will track as Tesla increases. I do think that that will ultimately result in a reduction of the volatility, but I think what people think is like, oh yeah, then like the price will stop going up in insane amounts. It's like, well, that's not my assessment, right? Like maybe the up and down and the wild swings that we've had we'll stop seeing, but that upward trend, right? Like Tesla is positioned to just continually crush their earnings at this point. If you know anything about the way that software companies work, I work for a software company. You are selling services, and those services become sticky, because what happens is, in the instance of Tesla, that car becomes part of your lifestyle and the way it operates. And in the future, full self-driving, like, that's going to be something that you leverage for your own personal use, or maybe in the future a robo-taxi where you're hiring your car out to drive people around town all day and make money on it. Well, once you have that, you're not going to want to give it up. And not only that, it's part of the software. So you're actually paying. It's not like it's 100% margin, right? There's a lot of really high paid people that go into developing the full self-driving computer chip, all the software around it, right? So there's like a lot of R&D costs associated with that. But once you get to that where it's like you've invested, you continually maintain that, so there's always going to be a baseline level of reinvestment per user revenue stream. You just keep adding more users year after year, and it starts to approach closer and closer that like 100% revenue margin. And it's just, people don't realize that. Some people do realize, but many don't realize that the marriage of hardware, in this case an automobile, and the computer, and then that software aspect where you're offering a service that implements your daily life, that's proven time and time again to be invaluable, right? Google did it with search. Amazon did it with shopping and predictive analytics. Apple did it with the whole way we interface with the internet through a mobile phone. Tesla did it with the vehicle. I think we're going to continue to see the stock move quickly upward and massively. And I think what I'm excited about is, now that it's a big part of the S&P, which a large percentage of Americans that do invest in 401ks, that large percentage of Americans that have funds invested in the S&P, or references that track to it, or even just other indices that kind of a rising tide lifts all ships, it's going to add so much value. It's like what the internet commerce did, and there's always going to be value innovation that it's going to raise value exponentially. And now a big bulk of American investors are going to be able to continue to ride that innovation wave along with Tesla and Amazon and Facebook and Microsoft and Apple. But now, like, Tesla's along for the ride too, and its inclusion at the top, like, we're still at the bottom of the Tesla mountain. You know, like Amazon's meteoric rise, like, a lot of people at this point were like, don't invest, it's too overpriced. Well, it's up here now. So I think we're seeing that with Tesla, and I think a lot of Americans are going to be very happy, and it's going to assist in the performance of the S&P. Obviously, it's going to overtake things and certain things fall out, but I do think over the next 20 years, you're going to have more companies like Tesla. I think Kathy Wood with ARK Invest and a lot of their different analysts talk about this, but there's all these different ways of innovation that are converging, and those convergences and those disruptive technologies, or platforms as they like to call them, they take the old and get rid of them, right? Like, we used to have steam locomotive, then horses, and then it switched to cars. Like, every time we got rid of one thing and ushered in some new technology, like the automobile initially, there's this whole new market that gets uncovered, this whole new value stream where you're taking raw materials and turning them into something new. People want to pay for that. And so now the cost of the raw materials is more. There's whole companies and streams that crop up around that, right? Like, everything in Detroit is based on that new product line that came into existence. And Tesla is one of those. We're going to have the same thing with genomics, and, you know, we deep mine to solve protein folding. Like, AI is going to continue to be able to be applied to new spheres of the economy, but also create completely new ones. And those companies are going to have meteoric success. They're going to find themselves in the S&P 500 as well. It's going to be a really exciting 30, 40 years in world history. I mean, this time is unparalleled in terms of innovation. So I'm super pumped to be just like a very minuscule part of that. And, you know, like, at the end of the day, I'm buying a car. I would argue that maybe I don't even need a car, but I'm so passionately bought into that green future, creating new markets, creating new complete industries that solve big philosophical problems that we've been dealing with as a society now for decades. Like since I was a kid, there's been this looming threat of climate change and how it could disrupt a lot of things about the way we live our lives, and displacing people from all over the world and worsening and more unpredictable weather. And you could say, yeah, it's overblown. We just have access to more media and we're able to see all these things happening. They always were happening. The data doesn't support that. It does seem like things are changing rapidly. And if we want to stop that change from occurring so that nature and biology can catch up and have a fighting chance, we've got to do things like this. We have to disrupt industries. We have to create new technologies. We have to come up with solutions to problems that have really been plaguing humanity to really be at its best and to be able to deliver the promises of hope and freedom and security to everyone. And I know it's not like I'm saying that without acknowledging the fact that like hunger is at its lowest ever. Actual like rates of violence is the lowest probably it's ever been since humans evolved, right? Like we are in a golden era. I think we like to focus on the negative and think that we're not. We are, but the problem is that there are problems, existential threats to humanity. You know, the one that Elon Musk is ultimately trying to solve by getting us to Mars in rockets and having, you know, multiple planets that humans live on. So in case of an asteroid hitting the earth and wiping out humanity, we have a fighting chance in our species. Like that's great. And I fully support that vision and I could geek out about it for hours, but that's not really the one that concerns me most, right? The one that concerns me is really our climate and our ability to find ways to exist on this planet, creating circular economies. We need to have that industry that creates the product itself, the industry that recycles the product, the industry that takes the recycling products of that product and makes new bits of things or utilizes the energy kind of like nature does. Mother Nature, everything's so acutely tuned where you have these circular economies, man. Anyway, going off on a tangent, I'm very excited to take delivery of my Model Y. Gonna go to the gym, tucker myself out, get a good night's sleep. I'll be sharing some videos of hopefully a non-panel gap hubcap falling off Tesla Model Y. Take care.